I did give a talk one time in the Canary Islands at a conference that was people that were all Nobel Prize winners and astronauts like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and cosmonauts. And the guy who went on before me was the world's expert in supernovas. He was from Princeton. And his talk was on supernovas colliding and exploding. And it was incredible. He had all these animations and everything. And I thought about it for a long time. It's been 10 years, I think. I can't think of anything more dramatic, more exciting than that in the entire universe. And so I got to follow that talk. So hopefully this will go better than that. After listening to Daniel's talk, I really wanted to change the title of my talk because it's pretty boring, and hopefully the rest of it will be a little more interesting for you. Let's start out with a quote. This is from Michelle Clancy. Michelle founded Cayenne Global, an agency, and she is the 2022 Marie Pastilli Women in EDA honoree. And here's what she had to say about marketing. We're the second phase of innovation. The first phase is the one that gets all the glory, all the R&D guys, all the guys making those terrific products that we then market. That's the first innovation. We're the second innovation because we make people aware. We make the awareness and the adoption. And all those great products that the engineers create would go nowhere without people being aware and people adopting those products. Does everybody agree? Does anybody agree with that? Come on, you product marketers, let's go. Okay. All right, so I think we all know these kind of things. Today's B2B buyer, he's consuming 16 pieces of content before he's ready to search for a solution. So he's going way down that journey, way down that funnel before he's ready to talk to sales. So that means that our job is becoming more and more sales. We're doing more and more of sales job, and we have to do it well. We have to get this information, get the right information to the right people at the right time. So it's no wonder with such a big, huge change, product marketing managers, they're in a huge battle for content development resources, just like we talked about on the panel, how we get those. And a lot of our corporate communication teams are just overwhelmed. They're inefficient. They're working tactically instead of strategically. So that's an issue we need to overcome. So Ansys, why should you listen to me coming from Ansys? It's the biggest, most impactful large company that you've never heard of. What we do is multi-physics simulation. If there's a physics, we'll simulate it. What does that let you do? If you're designing a product, any physical product, you'd like to simulate it, create a computer prototype first, and make sure that you have the most efficient product possible and that it's going to work before you actually build the thing and waste a lot of time and money and materials. So, for example, Ferrari and Red Bull in Formula One, when they change their cars to run on the next track in a week or two, they don't take the cars out on the track because they got limited time to do that. They simulate it with our software, and then they adjust their cars to get the best possible adjustments for the next track. Or James Webb Telescope. It's a huge, huge telescope. And you can't just send that thing up in space. You have to fold it up, put it in a payload of a rocket, and when it got out to space, it came out of the payload and it self-assembled. Well, that better work. That's zero gravity. You can't test that. So you simulate it with Ansys software before you send the James Webb Telescope up there. And now we're getting these wonderful, terrific, unbelievable photos from the James Webb Telescope of the beginning of time. And those lenses are incredible that get us that. They're huge. They're massively expensive. You better get that right before you build it. You don't want to build it and find out it's wrong and have to rebuild it. So NASA used our software to simulate those lenses. So any kind of physics, photonics, every semiconductor chip that's built, all uses Ansys. Okay, so we're the world's multi-physics simulation leader. Business is good. Our CAGR's been in double digits. We're doing really well. But that growth rate's been up 50% since we've instituted content marketing. And by the way, we make these really cool physics-based graphics like this one. So that's a Red Bull Formula One car right there, showing the airways, air currents that goes over it. All right, we're also very active in acquisitions. That's where I come in. All these companies that you see here have been doing some kinds of physics simulation. We acquired them. I was working for a company called Lumerical, which is photonic simulation. They're in Vancouver, Canada. When I arrived there, they were the leading company in photonic simulation. The revenues were way less than I thought they should be, and they had done no marketing. They were just typical engineers who are going to build the best product, and people are going to find it. So when I arrived, they thought, well, okay, now maybe we can do some marketing. It was great because I had a good product, I had a wonderful team to work with, and no marketing happening at all. So I could start from scratch, totally scratch, and do the marketing the right way, put together the plans, and put together a content marketing plan that works, and then apply it. So here I am. And it worked. They were growing at about 15%. The first portion of the first year that we applied marketing, we went up to 20%, and 30% a year, then 40% a year, which positioned us very well to be acquired by Ansys in 2020. And since we've gone to 50, even 60% growth, since we implemented marketing for them, content marketing. So we joined in April of 2020. Remember what happened in April of 2020? Yeah, okay. So pandemic, we don't get to meet anybody on the team, don't get to see anybody face to face. We all have to confined to home. I'll tell you, Teams was a great tool for me because I could root around in Teams, find someone that I wanted to connect with, find the organization, everything. And I could press that little telephone button, I could call them up, have a video call with them, get to know people. So Teams was really great for us for the pandemic. So as you can see, we continue to acquire companies. What I found by going through all that at Ansys was I was very impressed with the product marketing managers that Ansys had. Very talented people. And most of them have been going through the experience like myself, having been recently acquired. There were some that were at Ansys for a long term, but everybody was doing their own thing. They were promoting their own products in their own way. They were doing their own planning, their own content, their own deliverables. Measurements were all over the board, all different. We didn't even have a common vernacular. We couldn't talk to each other about what we were doing. We were talking past each other. So we had all these issues. Random acts of content decisions that weren't data-driven. We couldn't manage the content volume that we had. Sometimes we create content and we get lost over in a corner. And who owned the content, who was responsible for it, wasn't altogether clear. So we figured out, okay, this is the issues, this is where we're at, and that's where we're going to, where we want to be. Meanwhile, about this time, I was really enamored with a book. I'm a real reader, and there's a set of books that I run my groups by. And at the time, this book had just come out, Content Marketing Engineered. And it really spoke to me. It spoke to me for two reasons. One, there is very little material on marketing to engineers. Think about it. We market to engineers. Engineers are not, especially through social media, they're not very social, right? They invented media. They invented all the internet and all, and they disdain marketing. It's a very unique group to market to through social media. And so I read this book, and I loved it. I thought it was just awesome because every chapter I went through was exactly what I had done at Lumerical. It resonated with me because it was a way to market to engineers, and it's just what I had done. And so the author is Wendy Covey. Wendy's actually here. She's up on the top. She's waving her hand right now. So what do? I convinced my boss to let me put on a 12-week workshop based on that book, Content Marketing Engineer. There are 12 chapters in the book, 12 weeks of workshops. So we called in the subject marketing experts from corporate marketing for each chapter, the ones who were doing each thing. And teams helped immensely there. I called in executive leadership to give some lectures. And for each chapter, for each week, we had homework. Everyone had to read the chapter and then maybe do some prep. We had an interactive presentation session by an expert in that area. And where appropriate, we had workshops or group projects to do based on what was happening in that chapter. And we had open office hours so that the people who were presenting, anyone could come in, virtually walk into their office and talk to them about anything about that chapter. I also, at this time, I contacted Wendy just to let her know what we were doing, and she also agreed to come and talk to our group, which was great. So here's the results. We're all on the same page. We got alignment on our foundational marketing principles. We got common planning, content, vernacular. We can all talk to each other. We got common metrics. We're more efficient in working with the corporate marketing groups because we've met them now. And it also still leaves plenty of opportunity for creativity. And we increased the company's growth rate by 50%, by over 50%. Remember, we were growing in double digits. We increased that by 50%. And that is attributable, that's well attributed to what we're doing in product marketing. So in ANSYS, product marketing now is recognized as a very strongly performing group, maybe the most strongly performing group. We have executive leadership support. When we ask for additional budget or resources or people, we typically get it because of how we are performing. So that's all nice, that's a good story, good journey. But what's it look like in practice? How can you apply this kind of thing? So we put together a planning framework with True Marketing, which is Wendy's company. So we started out building campaign plans, set the ideal campaign mix for that campaign, create our plans, put all the plans together in one comprehensive editorial calendar, and then share the plan so everybody knows what we're doing. Okay, that's our planning framework. We look at our content mix. We want 60% of our content to be driven by the campaigns that we're driving. Okay, so we're going to define a campaign. We're going to define the content that will go in that campaign. We want that to be 60% of all the content we create. There's always on content like practice webinars or our web pages. And that's about 20% of our content. Here's a product web page for an example. You can see we'll put case studies up there on the web page. These are always on content. And then finally, the final 20% is opportunistic. Maybe an event happened in the news. Oh, Red Bull just won the Formula One Constructors Award for this season, Formula One. Let's do a press release on that. Okay? More content. Let's do a blog on how they use our software. Or maybe one of our competitors put out some news, and we want to be able to say what we have to say about that. So that's opportunistic. Here's another opportunity. We take advantage of influencers. So here's one. This group called Vertasium. Very popular. They do videos, YouTube videos on different sciences. And they did one on physics. They did one on electricity. And we were able to make their software, their presentation better by offering them to use our software and actually to run the simulations for them and provide them to them. So you see HFSS up here. That is our product. I don't know who named it. Wish I had named it something different, but that's the name. And our content is very targeted. You know, engineers, we're talking, if we get a few thousand views, we're happy. This one, as of yesterday, had 6,541,965 views. 6 million when we're used to getting hundreds or thousands. So that's leveraging influencers. And I can tell you, the CEO and his staff noticed. Okay, so how do we do this? What's our planning? How do we go about planning? We actually do this with True Marketing. They help lead us on this. We're starting one actually this week or next. We'll start out with the first call it September 8th. Get everyone introduced. We're going to bring in the product marketing managers, the project managers, the subject matter experts, and a leader from Wendy's team. Present what the project overview is and share what our business overview is. 2 weeks later, we'll have a strategy session. What are our goals? We'll talk about the personas that go with this, and what are our themes, our content themes. Another 2 weeks, another strategy session. We're brainstorming topics, content ideas, content types, and we will assign an SME to all the content. Often I'll bring in someone who's proven themselves that they can write well technically and work with the SME to actually write the content. Just do an interview with the SME because applications engineers, R&D engineers, they're not always the best writers. So we help them out, and then we publish it under their name. And then finally, our last team meeting, 2 weeks later, review the content plan, the calendar, the timeline, share our scorecard that we're going to use, and discuss the next steps. So that's it. Within about a month, we're through with our planning. Now we have to implement. So here's the deliverables from that. Our content goals, our personas, our content topic clusters, drill down to the content details, our content plan, and the calendar. I'll go through each one for you. So deliverables might be something like position Ansys as the leader in optical and photonic simulation. Demonstrate that we have a unified optical solution, and attract and engage our target audiences. Move them through the buyer's journey. Okay, so that's a very typical set of goals for us. Buyer personas are very typical for us. They tend to be very much the same across the different products. We're selling to chip designers or product designers, engineers, a CAD methodology engineer, someone who puts all the software together for the design, a head of the design team, and then someone who's typically they got like one guy who like knows everything about this particular product. I remember a long time ago when I was working with Texas Instruments, we were building chips for Apple, and they had this one I/O that nobody knew what was in it, this input-output connector, but it was called the Woz I/O, and Woz had done that I/O, and he did it just right, and it was perfect, and do not touch that I/O. They used that design like forever. Okay, so now clusters. We use clusters because they're a good planning tool for us. It really helps with the SEO strategy and to make sure that we cover all the key topics. So here's an example. Let's say we were working on low power for some IoT products. So we apply that to IoT Wi-Fi solutions is one thing we want to talk about. We want to talk about smart homes and health monitoring. Low power applies to all these different things, and we're going to build out every one of these. For the Wi-Fi solutions, let's go back to that. What is the content that we want to build for this? We want to build a white paper, do a tech talk and a blog, maybe a case study, some app notes, maybe even an infographic. So we'll put all those together. This is what we want to do. And then we go down into the detail. We detail out each one of those. And the webinar is going to talk about something with a customer. We're going to talk about Wi-Fi features and how Wi-Fi is pervasive in specific industries. And we're going to do that with a customer because we want to show Wi-Fi expertise and integration with that customer. And our audience is going to be just the same pretty much as the personas that we identified: engineering director, senior developer, senior director, and so on. We'll do that for each piece of content. And then we'll sort it out by the buyer's journey, or the funnel if you like. For each content, each piece of content, we will map it against each part of the buyer's journey. Make sure that we have good coverage for the entire buyer's journey. Make sure that we don't have 18 pieces of content in Attract and 0 in Convert, for example. Here's another way to look at it, if you're more used to the funnel. Okay, the content for each part of the funnel. This is actually the way that I present to our sales team, because this is what they understand a buyer's journey. And this is how I present to them what the content that we are supporting them with for each part of that journey. And then finally, the content calendar. Sorry, I actually redacted the topics because these topics are still yet to be developed. And there's a competitor or two that I don't want to see that. But we will put a calendar together and list what time, what dates we're going to publish each piece of this content. So that's it. One more thing I will present to sales and product managers is a 4-quarter rolling calendar. So we do in detail all of our content for perhaps the next 6 months. But we will start planning the next 2 quarters with the themes and all, and start etching them out so that we have an idea and our teams have an idea of what we're going to be delivering all of that time. And we do that rolling so that it's not a big, huge planning process once a year that is all-consuming. We do it every quarter. We add details every quarter, and we go one further quarter into planning. Okay, so here's some of our results. Here's some content that we developed, and it's been very well received. People love it. We measure our content. Okay, so part of the planning is what are the KPIs, what are the measurements. The company really wants us to measure leads. We like to measure impact on revenue. It's hard to get from leads to revenue, especially with so many acquisitions and so many different systems in use, but we're trying to get there. We want to measure much more than just leads. If you want more information, I'm here. I'm happy to talk to you. I'm sure that True Marketing will talk to you. This is the book. I can't recommend it enough. So in the preview, I said that I would give a list of books that I recommend. Like I said, I'm a reader. So here's some books that I think you'll do well by reading. The first one is called G2G, Geek to Geek Social Media Marketing. I'm the executive editor of that book. It is essentially my philosophy of marketing to engineers. When I started marketing social media, and I found that marketing to engineers was different, we decided to write a book about it and state about why it was so different and how to do it successfully. So I coined the term G2G, Geek to Geek. The next book is by Stephen R.M. Covey. You might know Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Effective People. This is his son. This book, I think, is even more important. It's called The Speed of Trust. It's about why trust is so important in business, why you can move so fast when your team trusts itself and people that you're working with, and why things move so slow and fail when trust is missing. So Speed of Trust is a great book. I've been talking about Content Marketing Engineer by Wendy Covey. Right on the cover, it talks about trust. It's a really key concept. And then the final book I'd like to recommend, go out to Amazon and buy this book. It's called Stardust, 50 Years of Man in Space. These were my co-presenters at that conference in the Canary Islands. And we all wrote a chapter in this book, people like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, Brian May from Queen, who is an astrophysicist, by the way. And the foreword of this book is written by Stephen Hawking. I guarantee that you'll be totally absorbed in this book if you buy it. Okay, and that that concludes my presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's a very didactic way to build a content program, and the results are amazing, right? Any questions for Rich? We have one right here.
Yeah, you're going to challenge me.
Thank you. That was an amazing presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so I have a three-part question. One, obviously, it's really important that you spoke on the perspective of talking to engineers, because I work in Synopsys as well.
Oh, great. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, even those few thousand of them that we tried to reach out to are really important.
Yes.
But anyways, my first question is, how do you come up with content ideas? Because some of our...
That's a great
some of
idea.
us-
That's a great question.
Some of us product marketers are not very technical, like me,
Yeah,
for example.
that's a great question.
That's one.
Okay, let me answer that question first. Okay. So I am always reading material, what's out there, relevant material like IEEE Spectrum or what's going on in the world, James Webb Telescope and all. And it'll strike me that, wow, wouldn't that be a great blog? How does our software impact that? And I will then go talk to our product manager, and he'll say, yeah, you're right, that'd be great. I say, who can talk about this? Who can write this? There's this SME that can talk about that. And so we'll go get him to go do it. But it's our real world interactions.
Thank you. My second question is, how do you decide the amount of content that you want to produce for, related to, say, a campaign?
Typically, it's limited by two things. I don't think we've ever gotten to the point where we've gotten so much content that I want to cut some out. One is, what ideas can we generate, like I was talking earlier. Second one is resources. There's only a certain amount of people who can write. There's only a certain amount of budget that you can hire third-party writers with. So we want to make sure, like I said, content in every part of that journey for people so they can journey with us all the way through to the sale. And I've never gotten to a limit where I said that's too much.
Yeah, one more. My last question, but I also have a follow-up question from your first answer. My third question is, what are your views on gating content? Again,
What are my views on gating content?
Yeah.
In general, I'm against it. The good thing about gating content is you get more information about that person to put in your database. That's good. And if you do that, you should minimize the amount that you ask for. Because people go 1, 2, 3 lines and they turn off and say, forget it, it's not that important for me, I'm not going to get that content. You want to get the reason you're doing content, I hear that there's a preview of the new movie coming out, so if you stay for that. Gated content, the purpose of your content, of developing content, is to get it into the right person's hands at the right time. The right content, right person's hands, right time. If you gate your content, you're cutting yourself off of some of that. So that's purpose number one. Now, purpose number two, getting more information about the person, that's good, but it doesn't obviate purpose number one.
All righty. Anybody else? We have one question here in the middle. Last question before we go to... If you could just, wait for the microphone. Thanks.
That probably works better. You mentioned at the very beginning of your presentation that marketing efforts helped increase revenue by 50%. How did you attribute that to marketing specifically and not just natural progression
very good
of
question.
sales?
So I talked about revenue at Lumerical, which is a much smaller pie. And I talked about growth rate of 50%, growth rate at Ansys and growing the growth rate by 50%, just to be clear. And I also talked about how it's hard to attribute marketing to our sales or revenue to marketing going through that whole chain. That's absolutely true. So what we did was, what changed? What changed was we started providing content marketing and doing a good job of it. And that was accepted by the company. It was so obvious that that was the big change that was well accepted. Okay, so I would love to say, yeah, I could attribute that this person attended this webinar and 6 weeks later he purchased our product because of that. We're far from that.
All right. Thank you so much, Rich.
Thank you.
Round of applause for Rich. Something so simple, but that delivered amazing results.